So with NBA preseason almost a week in, we're already getting a small sample size of how some teams and some players on some teams are looking like for this upcoming season. And today I kind of just want to discuss some biggest blessings, some best players that we've seen so far this preseason, and also some biggest busts that we've seen so far this preseason. Couple disclaimers before we get into this video. Number one, this is preseason. Obviously, guys aren't going 100%. It's more of a feeling out process. Coaches are kind of seeing how their new players are fitting in with the existing players, and also this time is for coaches to get their young guys out there, see if they've taken the next step that they've wanted them to for this upcoming season. And then the second disclaimer is preseason is only 5 days in. A lot of teams have only played one game. Some teams have played 2 games, and I tried to select some players that have played multiple games and have kind of trended in both those games upwards or downwards. So I wanted to start out with a couple honorable mentions for the blessings, the players who have came out and I thought look good so far this preseason. And there are actually 2 rookies. The first one is Cooper Flagg. So in the one showing that we've seen from Flagg against the defending champion OKC Thunder, he looked pretty solid for a rookie, I'm not going to lie. 10 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists on 3 of 6 shooting, and 2 of 3 from the three-point line, which I think is a big thing. I think there was question marks on his outside shot. Obviously, everybody knows he can, he's lengthy, he's athletic, he can get to the rim, but 2 for 3 in an NBA game against NBA caliber players, that's a good sign for his first game. Obviously, there's a bit of nerves for your first NBA preseason game, but he came and delivered. I mean, from what I see from the stat line, only 14 minutes, but 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 10 points. I mean, obviously, Cooper Flagg is going to be a stat sheet stuffer. He's a guy who can come out on any night and do it all. He's got the vision, athleticism to rebound and run the floor, get to the rim. He only had 1 block, no steals, but I'm sure this season we're going to be seeing a lot more of him in the defensive category because he's got a good feel for that. I mean, there's a reason people compared him to Andre Karolinko. Like, this dude does it all. And the other guy that I wanted to talk about as an honorable mention is Jace Richardson of the Orlando Magic. In his one showing, 5 for 11 from the field, 3 for 3 from the three-point line. Somehow got 3 offensive rebounds in the game. Miami Heat might want to get back to the fundamentals of boxing out. 2 assists and then ended with 13 points. Jace Richardson's a guy that I was really big on going into the draft. I had a lot of exposure to him because I'm a University of Michigan basketball fan, and he plays in the same conference at Michigan State, and so I'd see highlights from him all the time, and I always thought he looked like a great player. I think the reason why he dropped a little bit farther in the draft than what his skill set shows was just because I think scouts kind of viewed him as more of a shooting guard. And at 6'2", that's a really short shooting guard, but I don't see why he couldn't be a combo guard, point guard, or shooting guard. He had a lot of run at Michigan State at point guard, and while he probably does look to get his shot first, he can facilitate. I mean, he can find guys in the games that I've watched. Even in Summer League, I felt like he performed very well, showed what he was made of, and overperformed for being the 25th overall pick in the draft. I mean, 2 games in the Summer League, he averaged 16.5 points and shot over 50%. So it's not like he was shot chucking. He shot at a great clip. And after 2 games, the Magic felt like they saw all they needed to see from him and decided he didn't need to play anymore. And that's always a good sign if you're a young player. All right, so the first official bust that I have for this preseason so far is DeAndre Ayton. In his first game with the Lakers, he shot only 2 shots, scored 1 point, 8 rebounds, 1 assist, had some nice blocks, but then 4 turnovers. And the thing with DeAndre Ayton that's so frustrating is he has the physical tools to be a good center, but he just doesn't look like he wants to be out there. I think his confidence got pretty shot when over his relationship with Monty Williams in his last year or two with the Suns. And then he was, exiled to Portland, where they haven't really been competitive since he was on the team. It was pretty obvious he kind of was just going there night in and night out just to kind of go through the motions and collect a paycheck. He's on the Lakers. That's a team that's going to compete for a playoff spot this year. And so the Lakers really need him to actually lock in and show that he wants to be out there. He wants to actually try out there, because so far, once again, he just looks like he doesn't even want to be out there. Not hustling, not going, not being as physical as he should be. His second game, he did have a better game. I think he went like 3 for 8 from the field, but still just not good enough for a guy who the Lakers were flaunting that like this was their offseason acquisition. Like DeAndre Ayton obviously wasn't their first choice, but he was the guy that they brought in to help fill their gap that they have at center, because they had Jackson Hayes and Maxi Kleber for part of the year last year, and they needed a better center. It's a little scary if you're a Lakers fan that this is the guy they brought in to be the problem solver for your center position. And so far, I mean, he really hasn't looked much better than Jackson Hayes was last year. So it'll be interesting to see if he can kind of get over whatever's going mental game is going on in his head, and really, hopefully actually produce something for the Lakers this year. So the first blessing that I wanted to talk about, and he's on the thumbnail, is Cade Cunningham. Totally not biased at all, though. In all seriousness, as a Pistons fan, I have zero complaints about Cade's game against the Grizzlies. I guess the one thing I can complain about is the 3 turnovers. He looked a little nonchalant with the ball during the game. Overall stat line, 8 of 11 from the field, 2 for 3 from the 3-point line, 20 points, 3 assists, 4 rebounds, 2 steals. The things that I really want to talk about with Cade is he finally looks comfortable out there. Every year that I've watched him, he's always had the talent, but I don't think he's realized he has that talent. But really, this game just showed, like, he looked like he was, when he had the ball in his hand and someone was guarding him straight up, he looked like he was looking them dead in the eye and was saying, I can get to my spot however I want, and I'm going to drain this shot. And, I mean, he shot 8 for 11. He shot an amazing percentage. His finishing looks a lot better. But the main thing that looked really good was his defensive awareness. It just looked like he knew where the Grizzlies wanted to swing the ball and move the ball before they really even did. He was everywhere on defense. He had 2 steals, and so I really saw everything I needed to see from Cade. And I really think he's going to take the next step after the major step he took last year. Again, no bias included. So the next bust that I want to talk about, and I'm sorry, Lakers fans, it sounds like I'm picking on you, but I promise I'm not, is Dalton Knecht. I could have even included Bronny on this list, but I've seen enough people talk about Bronny's first game of preseason, and I haven't seen as many people talk about Dalton Knecht. And so I kind of want to talk about him more, because Bronny was one of the last picks in the draft. You can argue whether it was a charity pick because he's LeBron's son or whatever. I don't care. You can have your opinions about that. But Dalton Knecht was our first round pick. And this was a guy who was older than the rest of the class coming out of college. And he has really not shown that he is NBA ready. He started his rookie season really good. And then all of a sudden, like midway through the season, just kind of fell off a cliff with his shooting. Summer League, he was really bad, shot terrible percentages in this last Summer League. And so far, in his 2 games with the Lakers, he's shot in 2 for 10 from the field, 1 for 7 from the 3-point line, and then 3 for 11 and 2 for 7 in his second game. It's scary when you have a guy like Dalton Knecht, because the only really positive that he has to his game is his shooting. He's pretty slow with the ball in his hands, doesn't play very good defense. And so those one-dimensional shooter type players, it gets very scary when they get in a shooting slump, because if they're not hitting their shots, that's the reason they're out on the floor, is to hit shots. And if they're not doing that, I mean, in 2K terms, their build name is a two-way bricklaying cone, dude. They don't really do anything else. And obviously people are going to have shooting slumps, but this shooting slump from Dalton Knecht has been months long, stretching all the way back to the end of last season, into Summer League, and now into these preseason games. He looks just like DeAndre Ayton, in my opinion, where he just doesn't really look like he wants to be out there. I don't know if JJ Redick kind of destroyed his confidence, because I know there was some tension between them, and JJ Redick not really trusting him and not really giving him the minutes that I think he deserves. So I don't know if that's what's causing that, not really looking like he's involved. Again, man, it's really scary because the Lakers really didn't make many moves this offseason that looks like it's going to benefit them into improving. The other thing that I think they were banking on was, these very few young assets that we have in Bronny and in Dalton Knecht aren't really developing either. Bronny, I think, will take more time. Obviously, he's not as skilled as a first-round pick, and so those guys do take longer to develop. But Dalton Knecht is already 24 years old. He came out of college really late compared to top NBA prospects, and those guys usually come in and produce at a higher clip their rookie year than all the other young guys, and then just kind of stay in that level for the rest of their career while the young guys can develop. But if this is the best that we're going to get from Dalton Knecht, that is really scary for the Lakers organization and Lakers fans. All right, the next blessing is another guy who's one of the top guys in the league, and it's Wemby. They faced off last night against Victor Oladipo in the Guangzhou Luau Lions.
Pacific. Guangdong Tigers. Ni hao! Ni hao! Ni hao!
And Wemby only played 16 minutes, but I mean, he looked insane in those 16 minutes. Only took 3 shots, made all of them, but then 10 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 blocks in 16 minutes of play. Like, he straight up did it all out there. So many possessions where he could have probably just taken it himself, but got his teammates involved. I think the lineup that is really scary this year for them is going to be when him and Luke Cornett are out on the court together, because Wemby's obviously not a traditional big man. And so there were a couple possessions last night where I saw Wemby running the pick and roll ball handler, and Luke Cornett was the screener. A double 7-footer pick and roll is nightmare fuel for a opposing team. Not to mention just how much defensive presence they have inside with a 7'4" guy and a 7-foot guy. I think this is finally the year that Wemby is kind of like, all right, like this is gonna be my league in the next couple years. And with De'Aaron Fox now for a full year, I think the Spurs are gonna probably be really good this year. All right, so the final bust that has caught my eye for the last 5 days or so has been UConn alum Jordan Hawkins out of New Orleans. It's a very similar case to Dalton Knecht in the fact that Jordan Hawkins is just a guy who's pretty much a one-dimensional shooter. He's too young to have really developed any other part of his game. He had a really good rookie year, really solid rookie year, very promising, and then a pretty bad sophomore slump, I thought, last year. I mean, the Pelicans as a whole had a pretty bad year that year. And so I think fans were kind of expecting a bounce back year from not only him, but a couple more guys on the Pelicans. In his first game of preseason this year, he shot 3 for 9 from the field and 1 for 4 from the three-point line. And then in his second game, shot a little bit better from the field, 6 for 13 overall, but then 2 for 8 from the three-point line. Like I said, just a similar case to Dalton Knecht, where he really is just kind of out there to make shots, get open and make shots. And so when you have a guy like that who's just not hitting shots, the coach is thinking, why am I putting this guy out on the floor if we're putting him out there solely to make shots and he's not making shots? Again, he's young, but I would have liked to see a little more of a bounce back couple games after the rough season that he had. Luckily, I think the Pelicans picked up a couple new pieces in rookies and in free agents that they traded or signed, to where Jordan Hawkins is probably going to have a pretty minimal role off the bench this year, but at the same time, like, you need to have those guys that can come in and hit shots, and he's just not hitting shots right now. All right, and then the last guy that's been a blessing from what I've seen so far, and again, only one game, and this is a bit of a lesser known guy than Cade and Wemby, but it's Aaron Wiggins. In his one game against the Hornets, he had 23 points. He shot 10 for 14 from the field. I think Aaron Wiggins is an interesting case because the Thunder are such a deep team, and that's partly the reason why they won the finals last year, is because they had so many elite guys come off the bench to where they didn't skip a beat when the starters had to come out, and Aaron Wiggins is one of those guys. I mean, he had a random 40-point night last year. A couple other dudes on the team like Cason Wallace and Alex Caruso. I mean, these are good players who, on a handful of NBA teams, probably fit into the starting lineup. But because they're on the Thunder, the Thunder have such good players that these guys fit a bench role for that team. But I think Aaron Wiggins is a super underrated player, and he kind of showed that. And he showed that last season, and even in the playoffs, he was super reliable for them. And I think it shows just how much the Thunder trust him, because after this first game, he didn't play in the second game. I think the Thunder organization kind of realized, like, now we saw everything we needed to see from him, all good things. So let's not risk the rest of preseason for this guy, and let's let some younger, more unproven guys get out there. But again, I think Aaron Wiggins is just a guy that's not really talked about as a good player, because he is behind a lot of guys in OKC. But I think you pick him up and plug him in a lot of other teams in the NBA, and he's probably starting for some of them, and he'd get a lot more recognition than he does as a very good NBA player. All right, so that's all I had for players that I kind of wanted to highlight over this last about week of preseason. Again, super small sample size, tons of more preseason games to be played. Most of these guys have only played in 1 or 2 games, but I just wanted to get my first impressions out there of what I've kind of seen and some things that have kind of been going on in my head about some certain players that I really wanted to talk about, and some players that I don't think have been talked about much so far. But I mean, yeah, that's all I got. If you guys enjoyed this video, please like and comment. Comment, some guys that you've maybe been surprised about in a good way or a bad way this preseason so far. And if you want to see more content like this, go ahead and click that subscribe button. I'd super appreciate it. With that being said, guys, peace and love.